Good morning, everyone. Come on. Good morning, everyone. All right. It is really a pleasure to be here in both my roles. And I'd like to welcome all of you who are coming from out of town. This is an extraordinary gathering of talented people focused on the next crisis of America. And I believe it is a crisis, and that is the affordability of a college degree. And when we gather for conversations about higher education, our talk quickly turns to the question of affordability and access. And we know that we're facing a challenging time in terms of even addressing the question of whether a college degree is worth it. It won't surprise you that I am a big proponent of a four-year college degree and the opportunities that go along with that degree. A 2017 report by the Institute for Higher Education Policy illustrates how increases in college costs are actually hurting less affluent Americans, undercutting our basic ideas of opportunity and fairness. Without retention support and other outreach possibilities, first-gen students simply won't be able to complete their college undergraduate degrees in 4 or 5 or even 6 years. And many drop out even in the last semester of their college experience. And that worries me. I see it at Rutgers, Camden. So what we have been trying to do is address those kinds of issues. And costs are certainly a critical aspect of this notion of retention. While students in the highest income quintile can pay for admission at 90% of the institutions surveyed, lower and even moderate income students can afford less than 5% of the institutions that were surveyed. Like many other research universities of our size, our commitment to first gen and to diversity is strong at Rutgers Camden. And social mobility for those students is a real preoccupation for me and the institution, because I believe that enables them to become engaged public citizens. And that is one of my goals in being a leader of an institution like Rutgers Camden. We know that given the realities of our current social, economic, and political climate, universities have to redouble their commitment to serving the public good. And that means addressing this question of affordability and debt. Our higher education institutions must prepare students for careers after graduation. We also must create leaders and engaged citizens who can interact and understand the democratic process and the principles on which this country was founded. So I believe there are multiple reasons why we have to address the question of affordability. The changing demographics in the United States results in an increasing number of people of color, as you well know, coming into the higher education system, and we must prepare them to serve, we must prepare our institutions to serve their needs. At Rutgers Camden, our guiding mission as a land-grant institution, historically, is to make a positive impact on our host city of Camden and to impact the overall Delaware Valley region. Our commitment to ensure those who seek access to higher education is a pathway to success for the rest of their lives, and we take very seriously what we are doing in that case. So a little bit of background. We have always been a first-generation student institution. The dynamics of who is a first-generation student these days has changed dramatically across the country, but certainly at Rutgers Camden. So now our form of access emphasizes the importance of admission and increasing the commitment for colleges and universities as a whole to the prospect that these students must be able to attain a college degree. I believe the future of higher education depends on its ability to promote a richer understanding of the role in democracy. I'm a lawyer by training, and so that commitment has deep roots for me. It's our public responsibility to provide access to a degree that delivers an education that benefits society, not only for the sake of vocation or goals that an individual student might have, but I think it's a public interest. So when we discuss access, we need to explore what it is that we are providing access to. It's not sufficient to make sure students get in. We must make certain that they are given the tools that will sustain their ability to thrive, to help our society grow once they graduate. Rutgers' commitment to producing creative problem solving is intertwined with our civic learning portfolio. This year, Rutgers Camden will celebrate the 10th anniversary of our Office of Civic Engagement, and it's something that I'm very, very proud of. It was launched to focus attention on how to apply problem-solving skills that may be a part of an educational institution like Camden, Rutgers Camden, but also to provide those skills to enable us to work with our city of Camden. Our civic engagement commitment is now nationally known by, among others, the Coalition of Urban and Metropolitan Universities, or CUMU, or AAC&U as well. And these are two organizations that we still have leadership positions in and talk about civic engagement from the standpoint of what we can gather among those kinds of institutions that are committed to this goal. At Rutgers Camden, learning starts from the precept that all students not only should but must benefit from a deep, hands-on liberal education experience that prepares them to be wholly successful in life. And we think that civic engagement opportunities are ways to make sure that happens. So we incorporate evidence-based practices that engage and challenge our students in the civic engagement program. They experience first-year seminars, intensive writing, opportunities and collaborative projects, internships, learning communities, all the whole 9 yards, but they also are enabled and are supported to do the civic engagement work in Camden. We also have global learning experiences that are experiential in that same respect, and they give opportunities for many students who have never been out of the country, an opportunity to actually see how other people are engaged in problem solving. The civic learning that we embrace is really foundational in terms of our approach from the work of George Koo, the founding director for the National Survey of Student Engagement, because he had found in his research that engaged learning experiences resulted in increased retention, but also opportunity to understand how best to problem solve in many different environments. And he found that this kind of experiential learning was foundational, particularly for first-generation students and students of color. His work also showed that when African American and Latino students with low ACT scores participated in such practices, they actually thrived in terms of their GPAs and other indicators, even more so than some of the other students. Additional research by McNair and Finley showed that even though we know the positive effects of high-impact activities on students, especially first-gen students and students of color, the data shows these students are not necessarily the ones that often get the opportunity to engage in those programs. And so what we have done is to try to make sure that they have those opportunities by really requiring, as part of what they think about in terms of their first year and second, third, and fourth year experiences, fifth year and sixth sometimes, those opportunities to engage in problem solving through civic engagement work. We found that actually our African American students have thrived more so than others in those kinds of courses, and so we encourage everyone to participate. We found that across racial ethnic groups who participate in these high impact practices, they graduate more quickly than other first-gen students. And I think that that's an important point to emphasize. And the important findings that we have developed that reinforce the concept by the researchers that I've mentioned that show that engaged scholars and students working together can actually do very well. We have actually a role model for thinking about engaged scholars who are students. They include Sandy Stewart, who is our current University of Rutgers as a whole head of the trustees, as well as someone you might be familiar with, Walt McDonald, who is actually the president of ETS. Both of them are our alums, and both have thrived, but they say they have thrived because of the nurturing kind of environment that Rutgers Camden has provided. And so we see them as enabling us to think more about what we can learn from our previous experiences with students interacting with faculty and keeping that nurturing community approach in the work that we do as we think through what's happening to a more diverse population that we now have on campus. So to give you some example of what that means, we have increased dramatically our first generation students to continue to choose Rutgers Camden. They look different than they did in 1969 and 1989 as they do in 2019. But they are clearly connected to this civic activity orientation. And they actually produced 430,000 hours of civic engagement work this past year in Camden. And they work in the city of Camden on a daily basis related to that programming. In the past decade, we've increased the number of our civic engagement learning courses 10 times over. We've quadrupled the number of faculty who are engaged, and I think that's a really important point to make, too. You have to have that engagement, and administrators who are involved in this program. I want to talk about one other aspect of what we do in the couple of minutes that I have, and that's the Bridging the Gap tuition program. We all know about the question of affordability. This program is very simple. We bundle Pell and state tuition aid grants for our students, and those with a family adjusted gross income of less than $60,000 have all of their tuition covered by Rutgers. Those who have AGI of 60 to 80,000 have 75% of the remaining tuition covered, and those of 80,000 to 100,000 AGI have 50% of their tuition covered. This has enabled us to grow, but it's also enabled students not to work extraordinary hours that will disable them from participating in civic engagement and other activities that keep students involved in college and seeing themselves as able to graduate in a 4, 5, or 6 year program. Bridging the Gap is about affordability, but it also has enabled us to dramatically diversify our student population. During the past 2 years, we've welcomed more than twice as many first-generation students, more than twice as many first-year undergraduate Hispanic students, and almost 4 times more first-year undergraduate African-American students. So I'm very proud of the diversity as well as the support given our students through Bridging the Gap. The point is to eliminate or sharply reduce the need for students to work, as I said earlier, but it's also enabling them to carry a full credit load each year so that, and do so successfully. We are part of a longitudinal study of the Federal Reserve Bank presently to see if this can be replicated, or if not, strictly speaking, replicated, then at least adopted in different ways, adapted to the circumstances of other institutions. I believe it's a national model. We have 2 other programs I just want to mention, and that's for our law school. We have a minority student program that has been extremely successful in producing students who not only get through the law school experience, but also have summer opportunities for employment and ultimately permanent employment through that program. And we have a number of different nursing school programs that also move students from the high school experience through a four-year college program. So we're committed to providing opportunities for students in many different ways. And we also are doing it in the K through 12 space that I won't talk about unless we have some additional time for questions later. We're a lead entity in the Camden College Access Network, which is focused on the Camden schools, part of our civic engagement. And we are enabling students to have counseling that results in their ability to actually attend our university and others. So the conversation about college access today is very important, and I'm going to stay as long as I can to enable a robust conversation. Thank you very much.